Namaste. Welcome to a New Paradigm of Education podcast. I'm your host, Monique Sayers, and today we have our special guest. Her name is Heidi Conway. Before I introduce Heidi, I'll just talk about a new paradigm of education. So actually, I'll introduce it by talking about what Heidi and I were just discussing offline, which was heart-centered education and the need for that in a new paradigm, that, you know, the consciousness of the world in previous paradigms has been led through the IQ, through the mind. And whilst this is good and useful, I really believe that the world has moved into a state of consciousness where we're able to lead through the heart, and that this is equally important to IQ. So not only is IQ important, but EQ as well as energetic quadrants. I haven't introduced a podcast like that before, so I just thought I'd bring that into this introduction for everybody to consider that. And we also talk a lot about that in our book, A New Paradigm of Education, for those of you who'd like to read that as well. So I'd love to introduce Heidi, because we were just having this beautiful heart connection together. So I love what Heidi's bringing into this world. So Heidi is a co-founder of the Changemaker Teens Global, and she invites all mothers and alternative learning educators to be the catalyst for positive change by holding space for young people on their journey. And she's going to talk about what exactly that is and what the model is. So by using the Changemaker Way, young people discover their innate changemaker genius and are liberated to find their unique passion and purpose. Hence, they show up, step up, and give back, embracing who they are, how they learn, and achieve local and world-changing results. Wow, that sounds huge. And she's also an author as well of two different books, Self-Esteem for Teens, the Women Changing the World, which she's a best-selling author for. And she's also got her own teens that she's homeschooled. So you've got a wealth of knowledge to bring into this space. I'm so grateful to have you here, Heidi. So welcome.
Thank you, Monique. It's a pleasure being here. I'm very excited.
Yeah, so I usually just start off just by allowing you space to introduce yourself, or introduce what you're doing in the world to people, so we can get a grasp of that. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I love talking, so stop me when I need to, but so for the listeners, and with regard to the new paradigm and where that all fits, and how we connected, is a past of me being basically thinking I need to follow in mum or dad's footsteps and either be a librarian or work outside in nature. Dad worked outside. He was a soil conservationist. And feeling like, you know, I need to go in one of those directions. I think a lot of people, probably my age, I'm in my 50s now, can relate to maybe doing what you need to do, what your parents are doing, or one of your relatives, or, you know, unless you're really going to break out that box. So there was a big push for me to go to university, and ended up at 13, even though I kind of wanted to become a vet. It was pointed out to me that everybody wants to be a vet and everybody can't be a vet. So what else is there? So at an open day at university, deciding that, okay, I'll do environmental science. Followed that path. So at 13, knew I wanted to do environmental science, and followed that path, got into my number one choice, and ended up being an environmental and safety technician, manager, consultant in organizations. And when my babies were born, I said to my parents, please do not tell them to be, you know, to watch out, you know, be careful, anything like that, because it's no wonder I ended up in the health and safety arena. I wanted them to teach my boys to be aware. So not, you know, look out, be careful, watch out, just be aware. So be aware already of what's going on inside you, where your feet are, where your hands are, what's around you, and who else is around you, and what's going on for them as well. So that whole connection. And then many people in the corporate world said that I should be some sort of counselor or something, because if an incident happened, I got to the root cause. I really got to the root cause quickly of the incident. And sometimes it had nothing to do with the workplace. It was something going on for them at home. And so they said, oh my goodness, Heidi, you should be a counsellor. So I looked down that path, but became a coach instead, and ended up training people to become life coaches as well. And it wasn't until later that I took my boys out of school. So I don't know if you want to break there or I keep going.
Yeah, so I guess I'm wondering how it's led you to where you are today on the path of, I guess you homeschooled your boys, and then also you created this Changemaker Teens Global. So I'm wondering, I'm sure parents and educators are also wondering about this. Like, how does that fit in with your story, and what does it bring for them as well?
Yeah, so over the years, then I have found out this passion, that my ikigai, if you like, is coaching. And so imagine if I could help my children save all that time and actually find their passion as a teenager. And so they came out of school. It was meant to be temporary. So there's been articles in newspapers about our family, and about that we're the accidental homeschoolers, that we didn't want to do that. But like a lot of people, it's even more so now that people weren't really thinking about homeschooling, but because of what's happening in the world, they are. But at that stage, I was told Matthew wasn't writing and the other one wasn't focusing. So 11-year-old not writing at school, and I'm going, he can write. And, the younger one was not focusing, and no matter how much oil or vitamins we gave him, like oil underneath his feet and his socks before he put his school shoes on for focused, focus blend, he wasn't, no matter how many times I put my finger or said, come on, why aren't we focusing? Like, you're 8. I never said that, but I never said that. But so they came out of school, 8 and 11. They wanted to go, the 8-year-old wanted to go back a few months later because he thought he'd miss his friends. The social aspect, he thought that. And the 11-year-old, well, we were only going to get his confidence up, ready for high school and to write. Within 2 weeks, we absolutely loved it. The eldest is actually on the spectrum, which actually I don't know if he would be assessed as such today, which is interesting. So I brought him out the first week. I said, come on, it's writing day. Let's write. Let's do a little essay. And he started drawing. I go, what are you doing, mate? He goes, I can't write, Mum, until I've met the characters. And they weren't allowing time for that. 40 minutes at school to prepare for the NAPLAN, which is our national testing here in Australia, the next year, like over 12 months in advance. They were narrowing the kids down to writing within 40 minutes. Otherwise, you're classified as can't write. You have to dictate to the teacher.
Wow.
And so our adventure began. Yes.
Wow, that's incredible, isn't it? I feel like that as well. It represents like the old paradigm where there's this kind of push and this rush, people, even in the workforce, I mean, the school as well, but everywhere, there's been this forced rush around things. It just doesn't need to happen when that little gift is inside of yourself, and it can gradually come out of you, which I'm sure is what you've done with him with the writing. Is that right? Like,
yes, and definitely, and it's interesting that you say come out of you, because when he first particularly came home, this rash came out all over his body. He wasn't sleeping while he was at school, and this whole rash came out to a degree that he couldn't walk properly. And I just, we went to a couple of people in our health team and our holistic health team, but Mummy's intuition said he hasn't been comfortable in his home skin, and he's shedding that skin. Like it was so, like he was literally shedding that skin to find a new skin. And so I said to them, if you knew why you were on the planet, this 8 and 11-year-old, if you knew the reason you're on the planet, what is it? And they both told me. So I think I didn't realize that this would, questioning would become holding the space and questioning all these coaching skills that I knew I was actually doing with my kids now that I had them home. what I did think when they were at school, I did think, when am I going to teach them stuff? Like, we're rushing around in the morning, we got a list, and then, then they forget their hat and I have to go back home and get their hat, or I don't have to, I chose to. There's all this rush, and it never made sense. I was not congruent with it. My beautiful, beautiful grandmother on my mum's side, she used to say, and she was German, and the only English that she knew was hello, goodbye, and lolly, and thank you. So what I took on from her, though, apart from lots of lollies, was immer mit der Ruhe, and immer geradeaus. And immer mit der Ruhe means always with peace, always with calm and ease, always. And immer geradeaus is always move forward. And so Changemaker Teens now use as a motto, onward with ease. So we're moving forward with ease. None of this rush. And in that ease, we can teach our children to connect to themselves. And in order to do that, I love, you use it a lot as well, is be the change that you want to see in the world. So we as parents need to connect to ourselves. And many parents, like face-to-face here in my office or over the phone or Zoom, around the world, I coach mothers to connect to themselves, and therefore they think they're coming because they've got troubles with their teens. And sometimes we direct the teens to the Changemaker Way or to a learning dojo or some other resource from another mummy that I don't, that I know, or another resource, because it's not right with us. But mostly we have something that we can help them with when we do discovery calls or so.
Yeah, so did you want to, that's amazing. I love the motto too, by the way. That's awesome. So did you want to go into a little bit more detail, just so I can understand more what it is the Changemaker Way offers? So is it like, for example, is it teaching? Is it coaching? Is it one-on-one? Is it groups? Like, what is it that you are offering or helping people with, just so I can understand and other people could understand as well?
Yeah, sure. It's definitely about helping the child to connect to their vision. So both boys, for example, said, what they wanted to do. And I said, okay, let's do that with our eyes, ears, and hearts open. And the older one wanted to take the rubbish off the road, the rubbish cars off the road, in his words, 11-year-old words, and design and manufacture something new. And the 8-year-old wanted to invent something small with a big impact on people. So something just small with a big impact. It was like almost saying, I'm small, but I want to make a big impact, It's the first time I was actually said it like that afterwards. I was a bit concerned though. He was into explosives at that time. So, but we just laughed and went, okay, let's do that with our eyes, ears, and hearts open. And so that's part of the Changemaker Way. It's a number of booklets with a parents component in there as well. And the child or the teenager can go through the questions by themselves at their own pace. And there's the cover page so that they can write when they did it, and they can come back and do it again at another time. Because what we find with our purpose, and there is an easy way, and I'll give that to your listeners soon, there's an easy way to find out your purpose. But it usually gets deeper and wider. So I found that out for me when I was like real clarity around it in 2001 when I began coaching. And it has not changed. It's just got deeper and wider and clearer and, more and more, if you can say narrower, but yeah, narrower, but deeper and wider. So just clearer, more focused. And I'll be more aware of it instead of just being the leaf in the wind and going, oh, that feels good. Oh, that feels good. That feels good. It was, will that feel what I'm getting that'll feel. And so it's more, I'm more connected. The more and more connected I am, the clearer I hear. I did see when my boys were little, I read in, I think it was just a common magazine, Women's Day or something, just a general magazine. It wasn't a holistic magazine or anything. And it said to teach, this lady had been overweight and she wished that she had been taught by her mother to connect more with her body when she was younger. And it was just in that context. And I went, oh, wow, wouldn't that be good? My boys were still really little then. Wouldn't that be good to teach my boys to connect to their body? You know, normally you might think about that for women, you know, to teach your little girls, but why not my little boys, to teach them to connect to their bodies? And so it was simple. With food we started, and I said, when they went to a birthday party, you know, they looked at the food. We ate very well. My job and my husband's job was to ensure their immunity was high, and we kept them healthy and organic food. And we had, as I said, a repertoire of holistic healers as well as normal doctors and things in our family circle. And they would ask, oh, can I have this? You know, when they go to a party and there's lollies and chips and all of that all over the table. They said, can I have this, Mum? Can I have this? And I said, I don't know, ask your body. I'm not sure, ask your body. And then you'd see these little ones just have their plate in their hand, and some of them would go, oh. And they, you know, they'd reach for it. For our listeners that can't see me, that they'd reach for the food and then go, oh damn, you know, I can't have that. My body doesn't want that. But then they'd go to something else, and sometimes they'd go for sweets, and their body would be okay with that. So that was the beginning of learning to connect to themselves, as well as my parents saying, be aware. And so it was very natural, but still, I think unconscious. It was just like, oh, that was a good idea in the magazine. I don't want, it seems to stress me to say, be careful. So what about be aware? You know, so it gradually got calmer and calmer, which I didn't have any of these terrible twos. I didn't have my teen, like the teens aren't, you know, the typical, they even say we're not the typical teenagers that you hear about that are off the rails or whatever. Sure, there's things that go on for them, and you can tell when they're reflective and thinking and more closed down, and we just hold the space, and you know, next 20 minutes there's a hug, you know. So but or maybe it's the way it is happening, like typical teenagers, and I just don't process it the same way. I don't know, you know, I haven't got sliding doors, so I don't know. So so that all related to the Changemaker Way, as I said, in six part portions now. We used to do it very loosely with parents, and now we formalized it. They can do it if parents or educators prefer it to be facilitated with their teenagers. We do that as well. So one-on-one, we facilitate via Zoom, or we again help the educators and parents to actually facilitate their child, because we're basically saying to be their coach, and it's really the coach approach. Well, that's the approach to the Changemaker Way, is the coach approach. The way is the coach approach, and that is, you don't exist, almost like that's what I was taught when I was coaching. It's just that I don't exist. It is about the child, holding the space for them, whatever they come out with. It can be questioned deeper, you know. So there's a number of questions, and then it talks about earning money from that as well, and then it goes through in establishing the format for putting what they decide to do in a format that can be shared with other children. So if they come up with some way of, you know, feeding the poor, or you know, creating something, they then can write that down and document that in a way that other children can use around the world as well, if they choose to, and then maybe modify it their way. So that's where we're heading in the formalize, that after now formalizing what we do.
Wow, so it becomes like a resource. I love that. Like, it's like the students or the children are building their own content and then sharing it, like they're not content, but their own discoveries, I guess you would call it, and then share it. They're able to then put it in a library or share it in some way with others who could then, if they're interested, reflect back and things like that. Is that what you mean?
Yes, Yes, to connect with other change makers that are on a similar path as well. So that's teaching them a skill they absolutely need in the future. And you've done so beautifully in collaborating and bringing community together so that will happen. We're developing an app to be able to record that. We're very much inspired by Galileo, and they can share. They're already sharing their own stories, and we will have stories to add to that. We'll be using some of the, like if children are inspired to do some of the online courses on Galileo. We are mainly, a lot of educators have chosen to leave the old paradigm. And we have established learning dojos. I'm actually working with a lady in Singapore at the moment who has established a learning dojo, which is a learning center. A dojo is a place where you find your way, and they can bring learning experiences of their own to teach young children. And a component that they can teach is the Changemaker Way. So they can bring that, if anybody's starting a learning center or, even forest school, if people have established their own little hub, learning hub is another word that people are calling it at the moment, we can help you add the Changemaker Way to it. You don't have to reinvent all these questions, and parent support. There's, once a week, the parents get together and we go through it and help them connect to them as well. So there's a parent session on Thursday nights, and we'll adapt for other time zones with that. For Singapore, I am doing Saturday mornings as well. So just talking with the community and teaching them how to actually teach the Changemaker Way within their learning center. And if they choose to, we can support them more and they become a Changemaker dojo as well.
Awesome. And so is it really varied what the children are coming up with? Like, is it all just inspired with what they want to learn in a way, or is it got to be, because you made them sound like they're these grand projects, like feeding the poor or something, but can they just be simple little things that they want to discover? Like, what is it like? Could you give me an example of something?
I can give you the example how it's all happened with my boys, and it's not that grand. It's not that grand.
Yeah.
And it's just their passions,
Okay,
cool. My boy who was wanting to take the rubbish cars off the road and design and manufacture new cars. On either side of teaching, getting Industrial Revolution, reading about that, reading car magazines. He wanted to then put a car show on. So we just follow that path. He wanted to put a car show on, and all the time I would be asking the questions. And with the car show, we connected him to a mentor who was putting on a car show here, and we looked at the real estate you would need and the noise requirements for that. So this whole self-directed learning all just went down the path of designing and manufacturing cars. On one side, however, we had business and entrepreneurial skills and courses at all different ages, and the other side we had music. We did, there was the music bus, and that was at one of the locations for a homeschool co-op. And one of them, the older one did drums and the other one did bass. And then they ended up getting, having different instruments. By the time my boy, the eldest, was 14, I couldn't hold him on anything car-wise. He'd done a course then. He'd completed a course where he did panel beating and tire changing mechanics, and he did everything with relation to cars. We got him the fluoro shirt and the steel cap boots and all of that. He came home from that and said, "It's too hot, Mum. I don't want to work. I don't want to work in a shed. I don't want to work like that. Way too hot for me." I'm going, okay, then what? And let's keep. We said we would follow the path with our eyes, ears, heart open. And that just means, how do you feel? Did that connect with you? Did it not? But we had a path. So we didn't use history, history, science, all of these typical curriculum subjects. We did them all in the context of, and he loved geometry. He was doing grade 6 maths, but grade 11 and 12 geometry and graphics and design, and and then he drew, and just amazing. And there's so much we say daily. We would not have known this if you went to school. We would not have known this about you. And goodness, like, I think you would have been so stressed. Can you imagine my eldest? We go, both of them, can you imagine in a blazer and a tie and knee-high socks? I can't believe I was the mum that when we went to the shops after school, I said, pull up your socks. You're representing the school. You're representing your school. Pull up your socks, tuck your shirt in. You've finished, school's finished for the day, but you are outside in school uniform. You're representing the school. That was my talk, what I was told when I went to private school. That, like, now they do whatever they want to do. And as I said at the beginning, if your daughter comes in, it's like, it's just be you. You are representing you. Who are you? Connect to you. Who are you? Let me see you. And boy, does that press buttons for a parent sometimes, because I said that, you wanted a typical example. He ended up doing music, couldn't hold him on the curriculum. And I said, that's fine, love. He taught himself keyboard. He taught himself bass guitar, ukulele, guitar, all these different musical instruments. And he was already, they were already award winners in the band for guitar and drums and bass. But the elder one just taught him all these different music. And I said, okay, that's fine, but it has to mean something. It needs to come out of you and serve God's people. We need to serve the people on the planet. And you've been given these gifts. They can't stay in you. Wayne Dyer used to say, don't die with the music still inside you. So I said, it needs to come out. How are we going to do this? So along the path, we had already, of the car path, we'd already rang a university looking at doing potential business when he was looking at doing the car shows. I think he was 13 then. And we looked at, well, what is the bridging course into university? So we started looking, and one of the business courses he did, he was offered $1,000 discount to do one of the courses inside, it was a college that he chose to do. And there was a certificate 3 of music. However, it was just worship music. And he said, that's nice, Mum. And, I play that at youth, but I don't want to do just youth worship music. I want all, music and my genre of music that I like. I said, that's fine. So he ended up finding a certificate. And at 15, he was risk assessed to see if he could manage that and go into that. And he did, and thrived and loved that. And then he actually went to an alternative school to do grade 11 and 12. But this is the thing. He learnt what he needed to learn and didn't actually finish grade 12. So technically grade 12 dropout. But this is what pressed buttons in me, because he never wore the cap and gown for grade 12. But he said, Mum, I'm done there. I have learned what I needed to learn. I went there to learn this and this and to have this chance of performing. I've done that. The last term, they're teaching us things that you've already taught us, how to rent a house and, how to budget. And you've already taught us all that, and how to cook and all of that. They're teaching us life things. You've already done that. Why don't I go to this college, try out? I've got my certificate 3 in music, that, and trying out performing on my bass. They need bass players, he found out. Why can't I just go there now? And I went, okay, well, then you've got an option. If you get in now, you've got an option to start, late last year, or you could wait and start early this year. You've got an option. But if you don't get in on your performance, they give you feedback, and you've got an option to try again. So let's do that. So we did that. This is my child on the spectrum, remember. I dropped off confidently. He went up the stairs. I did a few laps of the block, ended up parking in a loading zone. And then he phoned me and said, Mum, I got in. They've offered me a position. What do I do? I said, what do you want to do? Of course, I'm not going to say, well, no, you can't go in till next year. Not old enough, really. You'll be with all these older kids or whatever. No, I said, what do you want to do? What feels right for you? You know what we talked about, that you had options. what do you want to do now? And he said, I want to do this now. So he was like starting in like 6 days or something. And I said, okay. So I said, come on down. We ended up finding a park, enrolled him straight away, and he's there. So that was late last year. He actually did okay, like he learned, but on paper, for the first time, ever since Chinese at school, he got a D, but that's because he drew rockets on his paper and he never actually did anything on it because he wasn't interested in it. He was already telling me then when he was a youngster, I only want to do what I want to do, Mum. So he didn't do all the assessment items, but he was there to learn. He's only at that university to learn what he needs to learn, to get to where he knows where he wants to go. And again, I went through university and, you go there and pass, or if it's too much, you withdraw and go part-time. He said, it's not too much. I just don't want to do those subjects. I thought it was going to be this, but it wasn't. It was this. I said, okay, we better meet with them. And I thought we were going to have a meeting to maybe de-enroll. And we went and we asked questions and they found out who Matthew was and they suggested something. And when Matthew was really clear what he wanted to do, and now he is doing 2 subjects. He's in 2 different bands and he's learning what he needs to learn. We've got the okay of that university to say, at the end of this term, let's see where he's at, and he may not want to continue. Matthew said, he's saying, I may not want to continue, but there may be other subjects that I want to do. So he's purely there. And he is, of course, there's debt involved or payment involved for those courses. But any parent, I pay for any program that he decides that he needs to do, but because it's what will move him to his next stage. So lots of deschooling, lots of holding a space, because you don't go to university unless you're going to finish it. Well, he's not there. I didn't teach him that life was about growing up and going to university. I was there. I've taught him, learn what you want to learn to go where you want to go. Learn that. And that's where he's chosen to learn what he wants to learn. So many will judge that. The old paradigm will definitely judge that. And I breathe and go, oh, he's right. I've taught him this. I've given him permission to connect to himself. So who am I to say you've got to pass? Like, his skin just breaks out and more stressed again. We've got an inbuilt barometer, and we all do. So hope you've heard all of that, because I don't know how our connection's going on.
Yeah, no, I heard you. It's fine. It's good. Yeah, no, that's amazing. So you've just taught him to follow his heart and his passion, and to see where that is going to take him along the way. And a lot of people, when they start university, maybe they don't know either, and they just finish the course because they don't know what else. But at least he's got that in him, that, wow, if I don't like it, I can change. I'm free to do that. I don't have to stay. I can move on. And and there's no race either. It doesn't matter when he gets to wherever he's going. It's like enjoying the journey along the way. So yeah, that's amazing. And so with everything that's happened in the world now, there's a lot of people that are working in online and things like that. So your courses have been created to support the families, kind of like an add-on, or even just you can coach the families themselves on what they can do, with the self-directed learning, as well as this Changemaker Teens model, that's going to help them where we are currently in the world. Because a lot of people have been stepping away from the traditional models of schooling for various reasons, and so it's really amazing that that's what it is. And it sounds like it's very global, because you said you've got Singapore connection in Singapore and things like that, and the idea is that it's going to go more global with other places as well. So anybody who's listening from around the world could contact you, and you could work with them to create a kind of package or train them on what they need to know. Is that, yeah?
Yeah, so some people just hear the Changemaker Way. There's still a special because I spoke at the Australian Homeschool Summit. So there's still a special on the packages at the moment.
Okay, yeah.
Because that finished a week ago. And sometimes there's the option as well for a discovery call. So I can actually listen to and if the time doesn't suit on the link on the website for a discovery call because of where you are in the world, we'll sort something out, as we did.
Yes.
So I like to listen, and that's complimentary, 45-minute complimentary call, just to really hear the parent, or if they want to bring their teen on as well, but to hear the parent, to find out what is it that they really need. Because, you know, these teenagers that maybe have been in school and coming home, there's a whole lot of, you know, from what I'm hearing, there's a whole lot of emotion, let alone communication. That emotion is communication, that parents are hearing for the first time, because it all happened at school. And so they're really getting to know their children. And there's contention, you know, in the Women Changing the World book, that we talk about from contention to connection. And what really sped it up for me mid last year, it was a perfect timing. It was around when the collaboration of the book was coming together with amazing women from around the world, from actually, these are all Australian. But what I experienced, it was never an issue for me, because it was definitely very clear that it was about, you know, being me. The other co-founder, Linda of Changemaker Teens, when I ask her sometimes, who do I need to be to do this next stage? And she keeps on saying, amazing, and never had a business partner like this before, that she says, be you. Be you. And so what that question does, when sometimes we say, well, you know, who do I need to be in order to get this done? When you're told, well, be you, instead of looking at at celebrities or other authors or whatever, you know, you go, oh, okay, well, what part of me, what aren't I utilizing? Or, okay, there's a fear there. What's the lesson in that? Let me lean into that fear, that thinking I have to look outside me and lean in. And then that doesn't mean that you can't learn, because definitely it's about collaboration. You can't learn from others. But if you come here first and then move out, again, you save so much time, and it is done with so much ease. You know,
yeah.
So
100% on that. And that's what you were sharing. Yeah, there's a reflection on that with the book that we were creating as well, with our New Paradigm of Education book. When the vision landed for myself to create the book, the first thing I sat with was, I started to write a line, and I was like, you know, this just isn't working. This is definitely not for me to decide a new paradigm of education. This is going to be something that I need to collaborate with. So I automatically just felt into the energy of what I felt the wisdom within myself was, what my aspect was, and the people that would resonate with that, and called in a tribe of authors that would also be resonating with this same like frequency or idea. And then it was definitely what you're saying. It was like, everything that we need is inside of us, and we don't need this external sources to say so. And it was actually a debunking of education, you know, the old system of education, especially the scholarly, you know, side of things, you know, where we've all done empirical research, you know, college professors, and, you know, all of us, even who went to university with our empirical research background, you know, throwing that all out the window and just going, you know what, let's just write from our hearts. We want to change education. We want education to be heart-based. Let's role model it. Let's just write from our hearts. Let's just write what's coming through. So we literally would like meditate and then write, meditate and then write. And I was just encouraging that. And if there was something that wasn't in congruence, I'm like, that's not what we need. Like, I can Google that. I don't want to know what Google says. I want to know what you say. Like, this is your coding and your story. And it sounds very similar. Is that what you're trying to say? It sounds very similar to what you did.
Definitely. At 6 a.m. in one morning every week, we all came together. we did a little meditation first, and then we were just writing together. So we would just write, but everybody was on the screen being quiet. And yeah, we would just see what flowed. And there was a couple of times in my drafts, I've got I can't believe I've actually got to write this, but really? And it was sharing a story that's quite controversial. But I needed to experience it, this moment last year, and to particularly for this book, and to speed me up, to get out of my own way. Because what I discovered after something that happened to me, and I've written it in that chapter, is that I was prompted as I was leaning against a car crying, and this, a gentleman and a lady came to support and find out what was going on, if I was okay. Never have I experienced this. I mean, I'm always look for the gift and things, a good communicator, but this was like shoved me straight out of integrity with myself. And I was not heard. I couldn't speak up, and it rattled me. And I wrote in there that this must be the closest to what kids feel too, when they can't be themselves. No wonder they go, and they don't even understand why, but they know it's not them, and they go, and this has got to be the closest to teen anxiety that, in my 50s, that I've ever felt. And I was prompted to ask the question on a scale, like I got asked the question, one of the coaching questions you always ask, on a scale of, and I went, a scale of what? And I leaned in. So I'm crying in the car and still being the witness to everything that's happening, very, very clear now on how to be the witness and be aware of everything that's happening, even right now when we're speaking, Monique. So to be that witness, yet be in that moment. And I said, okay, on a scale of out of scale of 0 to 10, how much do people allow each other to be who they are? And I got 2 out of 10, and I went, oh my God. And I just started sobbing more, that we allow ourselves in each other to be themselves. We allow, by little things we might say, by things we do, by friggin' rules, rules instead of ethics and morality, that so 2 out of 10, and I'm going, you've got to hurry up, Heidi. You've got to hurry up and get this Changemaker Way out to more teens, to more parents, because if we change that communication within ourselves, within the families, that'll change it in the community and out further, society, the world. And you know what? If we've tried, I watched a movie last night that what is it? Don't Look Up, and I've seen it a few times on Netflix, and I went, I'm not going to watch that. It's about a comet coming, and ending the world. And I'm not going to watch that. But when you're trying to find a balance between a teenage movie and one with a bit of a message or something that I went, okay. And there's a whole lot in that for adults, and just laughing and seeing how absurd we are about the material stuff in the world. And at the end, it's all about, well, we tried. And I'm going, well, even if we tried, whatever you believe, and this is part of my stuff as I've been going through the part where I have many, 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 many Christian religious friends, and many, many love and light, holistic, spiritual friends. And I have gone through, the world, and I believe and I'm speaking up now because I believe there's a lot of women in this world, especially when we start recognizing the love, that it's about building the bridge. And even if we have tried, when we get to an end, if there is an end, we know that what some people believe will be true, and what other people believe will be true, that we go on and we come back, in a different way, or we end up, with Christ. Both are correct, and I may be, this is the speaking up. If I'm a global speaker, I need to speak this stuff. And this is what, and we come from, because we don't want segregation with regard to our health at the moment, let alone our education, our color, our gender, all of that. And yet we come from love, really? And we judge the spiritual, holistic love and light versus prayer and the Bible.
Yeah.
And, we can't, that is segregation. That is segregation. That is 2 out of 10 not accepting you for who you are.
Okay.
And trying to convince somebody. So I hope I haven't gone off tangent there, but I'm just very, very much about educating our children to tune into them and be aware of others as well. I actually chose the cup, the Make It Happen, purely to remind me that this is not what we have to do.
Totally.
We don't need to make anything happen. You might have cringed when you first saw it.
Yes.
Because I wish that we could say we're a change allower. We're not change makers. We're change allowers. So
I love that.
We're change allowers, but people aren't ready for being change allowers yet. Change makers, they need to come into our community where we can help them realize that you can be you and allow the change. But if we say change allowers, are you going to come to the change allower way?
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
So
I understand.
I'm in this world, but not of this world, and nor are you, and nor are the listeners. So
yeah, no, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for really bringing that back into education. I really believe it actually comes into what I was sharing in the beginning around just the opening of the heart, like the connection that we started off with was the heart, and we've come back to the heart. And I really feel like that is the key of the new paradigm of education, is leading from that space. And because if we're just leading just from the left brain, we're working with segregation, because the brain is wanting to compartmentalize everything, isn't it? It's wanting to categorize and compartmentalize. Whereas the other side of the brain, when we're doing our meditation and opening up, it's this place of unity and oneness consciousness. And so all of that does come back into, I believe that's really important for children and also for educators to be able to learn that, because it's actually allowing us to lead with our heart, as our heart is having intelligence, and then directing the mind rather than the mind directing the heart. It's so important. And I really believe that is the key, because why would we want to stop this type of intelligence when it's bringing more happiness, more joy, more concentration, more focus? Like there's so many gifts. Like I'm very, very passionate about if people want to call it mindfulness or whatever you want to call it, mindfulness in education, because there's just so many gifts that it brings through, and it also enhances the other aspects as well, because it's holistic. It's not that it's saying you have to not use your science brain, because science can be so creative. Science can be done with joy. Science can be done with the heart. It's not about one or the other. It's like the wholeness of it all. And so, yeah, I really love what you've just shared. By using that with your book and your connection with the women, coming back to ourselves, and then from there leading that with our children. And I really believe that also is the key. As educators, who am I to show up in a classroom or in a home or wherever I deem myself as an educator, if I still call myself that, right? Who am I to show up without my heart, without my joy? Like I'm not there. I'm not going to be holding space. I'm not going to be able to be fully present, to be able to absorb everything, to be wise, like all the things that we that are needed, like without that. So yeah, I totally hear you around that. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw a magazine, it was an online magazine article or a blog about showing educators or teachers showing up in the classroom that, why can't I just do my job? Why do I have to love? They're saying, my principal's saying I have to love my students. Why do I need to do that? Why can't I just do? And maybe if you actually ask that teacher different questions, we might find that there is, we all think differently. Our profiles are all different, and that's what the questions do. And we can look at your talent dynamics to find out what profile that you are. And there are the speakers of the world, and there are the money people and the figures people of the world, and there are the people that more are better with time management or project management. I'm doing this because there's a whole square of where potentially how you learn, how you love, and so then we may, and again, before the call, we said we may be doing all the same thing, but saying it differently. And even what's happening in the old paradigm, if we just got honest, if they just got honest and drilled it down and allowed the space, and maybe came from that place of ethics and morality rather than rules, there would be more unity. So as we're rising together and waking people up, or, looking up, it's seeing who we are and who each other are, so that we can see how we are connected and choose to connect, for the sake of our children and for the sake of, I don't like the word trying, as I said, that's how the movie ended, that we tried, you either do, there is no try, there is do or not do. And that's the thing. There is do and not do, and be, just be you, be ourselves.
Yeah, maybe the trying could be called like small steps, taking steps, as opposed to going grand and going, wow, look at this change, wow, it's just that first step, isn't it? And some people disregard that first step, but that step is the step, right?
Yes. I have no doubt that the vision that Matthew has, that he's putting together, because he said, if I'm just doing these few subjects, I can actually work on what I want to work on. If I'm doing all these other subjects that I don't want to do, I can't actually play and get online and, share my music and my art, because I'm too busy doing stuff that I don't want to do, Mum. I'm going to be there a lot quicker. And so I just asked him questions, and similar to how the Changemaker Way are asked from all different angles, to check that, is he running away from something? Does he need to face this? Or, need to, according to us, does he need to face this or address this, and he's just afraid, and we need to hold the space and lean into that fear with him? Or is he really wanting to do something else? And so sometimes we come, well, what about you do this, and we come up halfway, and we do help him move through a fear. And mostly he knows. Yeah, but it just presses buttons, because it's not the way we happen for us. And even I didn't think, even knowing and believing that it's important for him to be him, it still presses buttons, and there's still the deschooling, but not for long. My mentor told me, and we can probably end with this because I'm noticing, or around this, that to notice what you're noticing and listen to what you're listening to. So if you notice what's happening in your body, if you notice what's happening around you, and you're listening to even your own chatter and going, oh, I keep hearing this, what does this mean? Then, that's the start of, or a part of, connection with yourself.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing that you've been able to impart such wisdom, bring out such wiseness within children. And I'm sure all the children that are also, they've got it within them anyway, but just being able to, the word self-directed, kind of help them to learn how to direct, I guess is what I'm trying to say, their own wisdom around life and learning and everything. It has been so beautiful to connect with you. And I usually do ask one final question before we would close, which would be, what would be your vision for a new paradigm of education?
what would be my
if you could choose something.
my vision that everyone is allowed to be them. Yeah, everyone is allowed to be themselves. And you've probably heard my vision all the way through, but in a nutshell, in a nutshell, that schools as we know them definitely don't exist, and yet the educators and teachers that are there, the teachers still find out who they are and be themselves. And these communities, these hubs, learning dojos, hubs, learning centers, hire back the schools. They go to the labs for the ones that want the labs. They go to the halls for the ones that want to put a performance on, or they go to the wood shop or the metal shop, and they use the libraries the way they want to. And it's just that freedom. But I started saying, but then, the gap's pretty big. The gap is big.
Are you still there, Heidi?
Yeah, to allow.
To allow. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today on this New Paradigm of Education podcast. I'm always in awe of every single person that comes on here that's helping to make a change in the world. And yours is by being, was it change allowers, change makers? So I think I really love that. I really love that. The shift in that as well. So we'll place your links and your information down below so people can connect with you and you could support them with whatever they're needing. So thank you everybody for tuning into New Paradigm of Education podcast. And if you're wanting to connect with other like-minded educators or parents, you're welcome to join our group as well, a New Paradigm of Education on Facebook, where we have conversations and support each other around what we can all do together in this new paradigm. So thank you so much for coming on today, Heidi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monique. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.